and also in that budget that's not talked about is inflation. And I want to take just a minute to talk about inflation. I've been watching food and products inflation going on for the last couple of years, and it is out there. It's a lot more than 1% than what people are told. I just bought a tube of toothpaste today. I replaced one that I had in my closet from 4 months ago. That tube was 8.4 ounces. The new one is 6.3 ounces. That's inflation. They didn't raise the price of the product, but they cut the quantity of the product. And in the process, the government still records it as a family-sized toothpaste, even though the volume of the product has been decreased. And I've seen that across all segments of
Me too. Go to the grocery store.
Go to the grocery store.
Go to the gas station. You can see it
Go
everywhere.
buy a product and goods and services. The product is thinner, cheaper. That's just an outcrop of inflation. What the government actually tells us inflation is what the actual cost for products are. And that's different than what the product is. So we have a very high inflation rate. We feel it, we can't identify it, but the government still has to account for that, and part of the accounting process is inflation. And Minnesota's expected inflation over and above that $5.3 billion we have for a forecast shortfall is almost $1 billion added to that 5.3. So they not only got to balance the 5.3 that you hear about on the news all the time, they got to balance also that $1 billion worth of inflation. So I just want to let people understand that that's going on out there too.
And you noticed it in toothpaste? I noticed it in coffee.
See, I don't drink coffee, so I have no clue. So is it?
And I went to the store, and the can
got smaller on you. Huh?
Actually, they cut a big chunk of it out of there. And I'm like, what happened?
Where's
all my coffee?
Yes.
So buy your products on the per ounce cost, folks. Pay attention.
Pay attention. You got to be informed, and we have negated that responsibility in a lot of areas of our lives, and the price we pay for that is extremely high.
Too high.
Yes.
Okay, so the gavel fell over at the Capitol, and I'm pleased to say
we started out good.
Well, actually, I was a little bent out of shape in the beginning.
Oh, you didn't even get to the first day?
I didn't. Because I heard the Speaker of the House talking about the new family-friendly legislature we were going to have over there and how they were only going to work 4 days a week.
I didn't like that at all.
No.
I didn't make it the first day either. You just reminded me. They held session for 15 minutes and then adjourned till the following Tuesday or Monday.
Wouldn't you like a job like that?
Well, our Constitution, once you start session, only allows you to be absent 3 days and you have to have session again. And they went 5 days without session. So they violated the Constitution the very first day of Minnesota House session.
All right,
so I too, for a different reason, didn't get it out of the first day of session because they went home. And like you said, they've blanked out every Friday.
No, they didn't go home. They took pictures.
They took pictures and partied in the back room,
and
then they went home. But then they reconvened and you said they don't do Fridays.
Yeah, they don't do Fridays. And I thought,
why?
Well, they're family friendly.
They're there to do their job.
And I thought,
business.
I wish I only had to work 4 days a week and still got paid. My kids said, wow, does that mean we only have to go to school 4 days a week? Well, that's family friendly.
4 days, yes.
So they made a concession to the people of Minnesota, and they took, and you know, the representatives and the senators get a salary and they get a per diem. And they, in their token effort to pacify me and others like me, they took a 10% cut. So in the House, for their per diems, not for their salary.
For their per diem.
So they're only working 4 days a week. They're family friendly, and their cut for the House of Representatives was $7.
So what you're telling me, they're getting generally paid for conceivably a 5-day period. They don't work 1 day. That's a 20% reduction in their workload, but they only took a 10% reduction in their per diem.
Correct.
The math isn't working out very well.
So $7 in the House of Representatives, $10 or $9 in the Senate, which I just find appalling. Now, supposedly, they're supposed to spend Fridays in their district and doing things in their district.
Well, they do because they go home and have family day.
Right. They go home and, have family day.
Family day.
Awesome. All right. But after we got over that little stumble,
we got
I was pretty excited. I was pretty excited because the Republicans came out and they said, you know what, we're going to focus on jobs, the economy, and taxes. We want to make business more friendly. We want to make government more efficient and smaller. And
limited government.
Well, okay, I didn't hear any of those words. But the whole point was they really wanted to focus on jobs, the economy, tax bills. So when people started introducing other pieces of legislation, they said, back off. We have these 10 priority bills that we want to get out there. I don't think any of them have passed so far, but they're working on it. And Mark Dayton stepped up, signed the Medicaid expansion. That was
predictable.
That was very predictable.
Very predictable.
Which again, we should point out to the viewers, they heard it here first.
Right.
We told them
last
at the end of last year,
when House passed a special session and cut a deal with the Plenty, that we were in trouble.
Yep, and there were 2 special sessions last year. The second one was to handle flooding and a tornado, some disaster relief things. And of course, they tucked in a lot of nasty stuff,
including accounting adjustments of $300 million for to get them through the June of this year.
Yes, that nobody ever talked about except here.
And again, that's a direct violation of the state of Minnesota's Constitution, the one subject bill.
Yep.
So people, we need to be informed about what's going on and what our representatives are doing.
But the House File 1, which was the end of the legislative session, it was the 3-hour special session.
Monday afternoon, I believe it was.
And, well, it was, go back and watch some of the tapes from some of our shows, because it was appalling what they did. They abdicated their responsibility.
Kicked the can down the road.
Kicked the can down the road, and they said, we're not going to tackle this problem, and we're going to let the next governor decide what to do next January.
Yes.
And they all stood with Governor Pawlenty with their arms around each other and saying, kumbaya, rah, rah, we all win. When in reality, the taxpayer lost big time.
And the liberty of the people lost.
Yes, yes. So now January 15th comes along, Dayton signs the expansion into law. And that, folks, is how you got Obamacare to the state of Minnesota. Because
3 years
early.
3 years early.
3 years early.
Yes.
The last year's legislators couldn't do their job.
Nope.
They spent too much money, although technically they had a balanced budget, which is why Tim Pawlenty can leave office.
But they deferred $1.5 billion into
right?
this biennium, so that's not technically a balanced budget.
Technically, by law, it was a balanced budget, and that's why Tim Pawlenty and all of them can claim that they had a balanced budget. Whether we believe it or not, which I don't.
Well, if I don't pay my bills, my budget's not balanced. If I tell Bank of America I'll pay my mortgage in 2 months instead of now when it's due, that doesn't give me a balanced budget. But
politicians don't play the same rules.
In government, it has a different set of rules than in the real world.
Right, right. And that should make everybody upset.
A little nervous.
We saw a lot of good bills introduced. We saw zero-based budgeting. We saw
let's talk about that, because I'm still not quite sure about it. Is it basically saying the department starts out with zero, and we got to fund this, expense this, expense this, expense. This is the total what our budget is.
And they have to justify every dime they have to spend.
Okay. By what criteria? Because I'm not really sure how that all works. Is it by the criteria that they set up as a department?
Of course.
Ah, so then everything's critical.
They could say everything's critical, but that may not meet the definition of the legislature.
Okay.
So it's a wonderful idea.
It's an idea. It hasn't really been practiced in Minnesota, so
it's never been practiced in Minnesota.
So we would have a little rough getting started learning how to use this process.
Right, because the education folks aren't going to say, I'm not willing to give up my $13 billion. Right. You know, they're going to try to justify that every line item is worthwhile. The beauty of this zero-based budgeting, it would make it easier for the citizens of Minnesota to be able to find out what's in the budget. What are they spending this money on? Correct. Which right now is very difficult to find out. You go to the Office of Management and Budget. But they don't make it easy. If you got an accounting degree, you can dig through and find it. And I have gone to the Office of Management and Budget and looked through there, and I'm going, wow, there's a lot of line items for government. I would like to send people to the auditor's webpage. Because the auditor, all you have to do is request an audit, and they will go in and audit a program, an agency, a department, and I find those reports much easier to read than... They're in English? They're in English. Speak English? They write a nice little summary for you, and then you can recap it, you know, and then you can actually dig into it, and if you want the spreadsheets and all the numbers and decimal points to go with it, it's there for you. So there are resources.